All right, we're at 3:12 now, so just a couple minutes after. Apologize for the delay. It looks like we've got a quorum now, working out a few minor little details, but we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to move around a little bit on the agenda today. So we're going to start with House Bill 549, Representative Seabaugh. Representative Seabaugh, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'm going to present House Bill 549. I have LC 394641. House Bill 459.
I'm sorry, say that LC number one more time.
LC 394641.
Yep.
Okay. The proposed amendments in House Bill 549 extend the time frame for which reimbursement of training expenses by a subsequent employer or peace officer can be sought. Currently, reimbursement is required if the officer is hired by another agency within 15 months after completing mandate training. The amendments would extend this time frame to 36 months. Additionally, the amendments clarify the types of training expenses eligible for reimbursement, which include the actual cost of equipment and materials required by the council, approved school the officer attended, the salary paid during basic training, along with any housing, meal, and transportation costs incurred during the training, and up to 90 days of salary paid during the officer's field training program. The council will also establish standards for reimbursement based on the actual expenses incurred by individual departments. These changes will allow agencies to seek reimbursement for a broader range of training expenses with a longer period, specifically up to 3 years after training is completed. Overall, this amendment provides financial stability and incentives for police departments, improves the management of training resources, and we think strengthen the law enforcement community in Georgia. The reason for the changes were the standards for training were doubled last year from 400 hours to 800 hours. So Police Chiefs Association and Sheriff's Association, our law enforcement agencies, I believe, are in agreement with this change. And I ask for your favorable consideration. I have Butch Ayers, the Executive Director with the Police Chiefs Association with me, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Butch, did you have any statements you wanted to make?
I just want to say that, well, thank you for allowing me to be here to speak. As we're facing this recruiting and retention challenges for all law enforcement across the state, there was a significant amount of resources, time, and expenses that go into recruiting, hiring, and training police officers. And especially with the literally doubling of the basic mandate academy from 408 hours to over 800 hours, the initial hiring agency has so much more invested in that rookie officer that they took a chance on hiring in the first place. So I just believe this bill would actually protect all agencies of all sizes when they actually come out and take that risk and hire a new officer. GACP and chiefs across the state do support the bill.
Okay, thank you. And just for my clarification, this is the hiring agency now that would hire them. Secondary that would have to reimburse.
That would be the secondary agency.
Okay. When I did it, we had to pay it back ourselves, so it's a long time ago. Representative Neal.
At the appropriate time, I move.
Okay, I think there was another light blinking, but it went out when you said that, so I guess the time would be appropriate. So we have a motion, and I heard a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. All right, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, thank you. All right, we are now going to move on to House Bill 80, Representative Westbrook. And friend.
Yes. All right. Actually, I'll slide down so when you speak, you can.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, members of the committee. I bring you today House Bill 80. I'm working off of LC 473205. I have with me today Assistant Chief of Police Robert Gavin of the Savannah Police Department, and we bring this bill to you as a priority of our police department in the city of Savannah. It's really pretty simple. It makes one small amendment to current law regarding firearms that come into the possession of police departments. These are basically unclaimed, ownerless firearms that come into their possession following crimes or civil forfeiture in some cases. Under current law, local police departments, if these firearms cannot be returned to a lawful owner who can possess them, they have to be stored and kept and periodically sold off by local police departments. And all that HB 80 would do would give local police departments the option at their discretion to destroy firearms. They do not have to. They can continue to do it exactly how they're currently doing it. But you'll hear from Assistant Chief of Police Gavin that it's burdensome. They have to store quite a lot of this property. Many of these firearms are of very little value, and so this is not a money-making enterprise for police departments. So basically, 2 code sections would be affected. OCGA 17-5-52. I'm section 1, line 21. It just adds the or destroy language. And then 17-554, starting on line 32. This is section 2 of the bill. It sets up one code section with mandatory language and one section with permissive language. The mandatory language is essentially exactly what it is now. Unclaimed firearms shall be transferred to GBI or transferred to another municipal or county law enforcement for training purposes or destroyed. That's when they are certified to be unsafe. In this scenario that we're adding, line 44 on page 3 just gives them this permissive language may be destroyed at their election. Again, they can continue to do it exactly how they're doing it now, but in cases where police departments are burdened by excess property that they're having to store and sell and be in the business of storing and selling rather than public safety, this frees them up from that state mandate that they're currently under and lets them devote their resources back to their core mission of public safety.
Okay, thank you. Chief, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Chairman and committee, thank you for having me today. I guess the main part of this is good government efficiency. We're trying to move through our property more efficient. You know, the Savannah Police Department, we're taking an average of 50 to 70 guns a month off the streets. For different reasons, and so storage and moving through not only the statutory time limits, but getting those turned around and sold, destroyed, they all have to be reviewed by someone. Someone has to check those weapons before they go out the door to ensure that they're safe, and that usually falls on the sworn personnel. We have we civilianized our operations years ago, both for manpower issues and for efficiencies, and not having an officer working a window at the property room. But the main part of that is to move things along a little quicker and create the efficiency of allowing us to make that decision on the spot. That if something needs to be destroyed, we can destroy it, whether we send it to auction or just having that option.
Okay. All right. We got a couple of questions. Representative Ridley.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. How many guns do y'all currently have in your possession, and why can't you sell them currently?
We have them. We are currently, but what we're looking at approximately 4,700 that we're holding in the room right now, and that was as of last week. The reality is that one case last week, we took in 19 ghost guns. So ghost guns are, it's easy, we can destroy those. But we're getting a lot of weapons that are being altered. They're having, slight alterations made to them to make them, semi-autos, automatics, to do all kinds of things like that. We're taking on that responsibility of pushing them out the door to be sold in the hopes that, someone else, if we miss something, that someone else is going to get one of these type weapons that's been altered or changed. And, that sends that little bit of worry on our side to be able to make some of those determinations without taking a gun completely apart to make sure that it has been altered or suspected altered.
All right, thank you.
All right, Chairman Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for bringing the bill, and thank you for making the drive up to Atlanta. Just to be clear, what we're speaking of, there is already a method to get, regardless of where the confiscation happened, to get these guns back in the hands of legally permissible gun owners in the state of Georgia right now, currently.
Yes, sir. We release guns daily. People have them stolen out of their car. We'll recover them from someone who stole them, and we'll call those owners and have them come in, and we return the weapons to them. That's part of our normal processes. A lot of guns get altered, get damaged to a point where either can't trace it or we're unable to trace them back. But for every one that we can trace, we get them back to the owners as quickly as possible.
And let me ask you if you would understand the hesitation maybe of some members, at least me, on the committee, because you made some points about ghost guns, about current modifications, but this bill, as I read it, is pretty simple on line 21, does not restrict any agency of destroying based on the feasibility to make it a legally purchasable firearm based on any other sections you mentioned. It just adds destroy, which my hesitation to that would be, and let me make sure it makes sense based on the bill, is that we're depleting the supply of legally permissible firearms for legally permissible gun owners. Would that not be a fair fear of this policy?
Well, I would say that we still are continuing to move operable guns out. This just gives us the ability, say, if we get to an excess point where we've gotten once or twice in the past, you're at the liberty of one of these companies to come and get these things, to pick things up, items out. One day we took in over 270 guns. Something like that is a case where all of a sudden our shelves are full and our, we're rolling into backup rooms, and we may not have the ability to move those out for another month or 2 months. If that's the case, then the ability to destroy ones that are either in excess or that may be on the borderline of I don't feel comfortable pushing that out to the public to use based on where it was found, how it was found, the condition it's in, pieces like that.
Well, I will hold further questions. I think that clarified my point. But I will say thank you for the recent efforts on the benefits that Savannah has had in their new public safety approach.
Chairman Saines, may I just add to that a little bit? To your point, I mean, the entire reason that the city of Savannah approached the delegation, not just me and my chair of our delegation, Ron Stevens, is also a sponsor of this bill, was quite the opposite of a lack of supply. It was too much to eat for them to even be able to manage and still meet their sort of core mission of what they do. We've had officer shortages in Savannah. You may know that. And labor shortages everywhere. And so to devote resources, including human resources, to managing property is just something that takes the department away from their core mission.
Real quick, I got more for you.
And I appreciate that. My hesitation comes with, unfortunately, not the current presenter being the case, but we've unfortunately seen in this state meaningful policy being misused for political gains, and I just would prefer to see some more caveats and restrictions on when it can be destroyed, based on what we've seen on other areas of law enforcement in this state.
All right. All right, thank you. Next is Representative McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing this bill. I just had it's kind of a follow-up what Chairman Saines was talking about. So just to double check, I obviously see the bill, but just for the audience. So at this point now, you only can sell to dealers, correct? I mean, you can't just sell to the public, obviously. It's to certain dealers, things like that, correct?
Yes, sir, it's FFL. They have to have an FFL, and they also have to have the storage capacity to store weapons properly.
Right. So my other question is there again, like his, is so how would we set up some kind of scenario of how the weapons, not you obviously, but some departments potentially could just say, we'll just destroy them all. We don't have a criteria to say, well, obviously these weapons are junk or old or dangerous. I mean, might be just a bad design in the beginning when it was brand new, you know. So I guess my question is I would feel more comfortable if we had a criteria that we kept logs that said, okay, the reason we're destroying this would be obviously those standards in some kind of state log or something like that. And then that way you could prove, okay, we destroyed these because this, and then these weapons here are sellable. So that, I guess my question is, what's your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I believe that, you know, one of the issues that I run into, and you know, when it comes to these weapons is I have an armor, I have two armors, I have myself, I have, you know, several members who are familiar with guns, know how to use guns. I was on the SWAT team for 20 years. You know, so I'm an advocate of having weapons. What I'm seeing more and more of, though, is weapons that we're pushing out that are, yes, they're operable, but there's some unknowns to those weapons. And for me, putting something out that if someone in my grouping misses, and then it gets sold and someone gets injured by it, those are the ones. And, you know, again, this is not for you know, a nicer, newer weapon that you can tell has not been damaged or altered. But we're seeing much more craftier ways of, you know, using parts of weapons and adding things to weapons that can be missed. Right. And so if we miss it, like I said, it gives us the ability to find something, and even if we're on the fringe of it and we might not be able to say conclusively, I would feel safe to be able to destroy something to say, you know, I erred on the side of caution.
Right. Follow up, Mr. Chairman, real quick.
Yeah, real quick.
So I guess there it goes back. So my question is some kind of state log that would say, because if we can't, I mean, obviously we don't audit you, I don't think, on these weapons. ATF probably does, but my question is some kind of state log, because we as legislators, and then we don't have any way to know that, not you obviously, that the you know, other departments just saying that this is why, you know, we're destroying them because we're uncomfortable with them, and to destroy everything. That's my point, is some kind of log system that says this weapon XYZ, we're still kind of taking your word, but at least we have some kind of criteria that we can go in and audit somebody. Does that make sense? What's your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, that's understandable, and it's not that I wouldn't agree to something like that. I think if I'm going to make that decision, I'm going to say that, you know, I can't conclusively say that this weapon wasn't, you know, altered in some way, and so for that purpose, I'm going to require, or, you know, request that it be destroyed. You know, and something like that can be documented and logged in. It's just giving us that ability to do that at our level, rather than pushing it out, you know, with some of those unknowns.
All right, Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Westbrook and Chief, for appreciate you keeping Savannah safe for us as we visit many times. Have you ever attempted a sale through an FFL of the weapons you have in your possession?
Yes.
How often do you all do one?
So we contract with an auctioneer, and we'll do them approximately every 3 months. I did one last week and got rid of 1,700 weapons.
Sure. And so those are sold as is, where is, to the FFL, right?
Yes, sir, but I had to go through and look at each one of them before they went out. Two of my people that would normally do that for me, and we're a large department. It's usually the assistant chief's not in the property room checking weapons, but we were in another space issue where we needed to get a large group of guns out, and so I had to physically go through and make sure what we were pushing out, taking someone else's word for the fact that it's in a good condition. I needed to lay eyes on them. As part of what we do is we fire every weapon we bring into the property room. So they can all be operable, but not in good condition.
I think in the auction world, we're buying and selling as is what is. And I don't know that you're taking that extra step. Is that necessary to just sell them out into the market where owners who may want them for parts, who may want them as a historical weapon, who may want them for whatever reason that buyer from the FFL chooses? I don't see it's a problem to do that. And I want to echo what Representative Sain said. You know, safety in a weapon is in the eyes of the beholder. There are people in this building who would outlaw all weapons and would destroy all if they could wave a magic wand. And I think that's and I guess I just don't see why it's so difficult for you to, or any municipality, to put together with an FFL, a licensed dealer in your community, to just regularly come get them, sell them.
Yes, sir, and we do. But one of the biggest parts of that is they're not always available to do those things upon that current need. And so, during a high period of time or a large case, we're working cases with the ATF, with, other municipalities, and taking in large amounts. So I'm not talking about 1 or 2 or 4 guns, where we've taken in large amounts at one time. And to have the ability to get someone to come and move out other surplus, and along with waiting on statutory limitations to come and the courts to award them to us, have been the other part of that issue. Is sending over a list of guns to be awarded to us can take months to get those orders back. And in those months, we're still holding on to all of those weapons.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I may, you still have to hold on to them no matter what this bill does. And once they're released to you, you can then sell them. Is that not true?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you.
Okay. Chairman Powell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the author of the bill and chief, and welcome. Glad to have you up here. I remember, as I looked through this bill, I remember some discussions and a lot of the debate that we had several years ago. And I want to be a little lengthy. I'm trying not to be, but, we started a path in Georgia a few years ago about trying to put us more in line with the Second Amendment. And this was one of the issues that was in an omnibus bill that we had done about PD departments and sheriff departments. And by no means is this indicative of what y'all's position may be. But we had a number of police departments that we quite honestly felt that they were playing politics with weapons. They were storing weapons, making it unusually difficult for the rightful owner of a weapon to reclaim a weapon. A lot of weapons might have been disappearing at that particular time for whatever various and sundry purposes. But one of the things that we were very cautious of, we put the procedures in there to auction off an FFL auction. I notice in this bill the author's striking the language on line 52 that basically says it shall be disposed of at a sale, changing that to may. You go down to line 56 through 58. And I remember specifically we had put that 12 months to have an auction every 12 months or whenever there was 5 weapons. And you're striking that language, which gives me some concern as to that, because Second Amendments is one of those things that even the simplest change that can be made and any law that deals with Second Amendments somehow always has a back draft to it that it has some infringement on people's rights. Now, quoting one of the previous speakers, is not particularly indicative of your department, but it may be some others, because this would now become a statewide law that would have effect in Atlanta, Fulton County, other counties. And that's the heartburn that I would have, especially striking this language in here about mandatory auctions. I think with a little bit of work, because I can't remember at that time when we were working with this bill, this omnibus bill years ago, the topic of derelict weapons came up. What could we do with that? And for some reason it never did go forward, because they could be, once disassembled, they could be sold off as parts. They ceased to be a weapon at that point.
Yes, sir.
And that's to take what's derelict. Because one of the things that was always troubling to some of us, myself included, was there might be an antique weapon that might have been confiscated. You know, it's hard unless you have registered a weapon. You don't know who the owner is unless that weapon was actually registered. And believe it or not, there's a lot of folks who don't have registered weapons.
Yes, sir.
Either because of distrust of government or because of what they've inherited or whatever else. And we always thought that these things need to remain somewhere in case the day came it could be claimed. Now, if it's something like what we call the old Saturday night specials and lemon squeezers and the junk stuff out there, maybe they could be disassembled. Once they're disassembled, then they're not a weapon anymore.
That's right.
And then they could be probably disposed, if I remember what our debate and our thinking process was a decade ago in this. So I do have concerns about eliminating the mandatory auctions and this type of stuff in this bill.
I mean, yeah,
I'll be super
I don't
quick.
know if there was a question there, but if you want to say something.
Well,
we
I think
got a couple.
this was my failure to make a point early on that I should have made clear, which is that, there's already a provision for destruction of unsafe firearms. And so the law as it stands contemplates a review for safety by law enforcement. And so I don't think I made that point to begin with, and as I've listened to the dialogue, I very much thought I didn't get that across. So I would submit that to just say, oh, well, it's an as-is sale, as if it's any kind of property, I don't think that's something that a public safety officer can necessarily, view as any other kind of property. They already have that burden under the law.
Okay. We got two more comments. If we can speed them up a little bit, we're going to start losing people here shortly. Representative Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question, and it's kind of related to the last comments, but I was wondering why the language was removed regarding the frequency of the sales in line 56 to 58, why that was deleted.
Because the entire point of the bill is to give the option, So if it becomes discretionary, and the discretion of our law enforcement to either sell them as they can do under current law, and they can continue to do that going forward, or it's to because they become burdensome, the volume of the property, or because of questions about the safety, they can elect to destroy them. So if you no longer have to do the auction, then it's not necessarily to set the time frame for the auction. So that's the reason for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Ridley?
Thank you. I just have a follow-up with something you said a minute ago. You said your last sale, you sold 1,700 firearms. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, do you know how much you made off that sale, or what you charged, or how you charged for it? And then what's the cost to destroy a firearm?
So I didn't hear
And then the
that.
second question is, what's the cost to destroy destroy one of these firearms?
The cost, I guess, it comes in time and personnel to be able to do that. It has to be viewed. It has to be someone has to be there to verify that a weapon is destroyed. And also on the sales part of it, it depends. Sometimes it's 30% of whatever the sale is, or whatever the bundle of what they're taking. And, yeah, or less. But I mean, the current contract we have was for like, I believe it was 30%.
30% of the resale value?
30% of whatever they got for it, they would keep 65, and I think there's another 5% that goes to administrative costs.
All right, so when you sell it, the city makes money, and when you destroy them, it costs the city money. So, and again, you're saying you're short-staffed, but here's a way to generate more revenue for the city. I just don't understand it.
Well, I mean, and again, it doesn't come down to us getting them out. It comes down to the efficiency of getting all of it done. And when we get large amounts of weapons in, and we get to a point where even our building, having that space and the ability to put these in an organized manner is what I should say. You can't just throw them into a room. So the way we have our designs and our structure and our property room allows us to go specifically to it, know that that's where that weapon is, and then be able to make those changes as it goes through its adjudication.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think good people can approach different results for different reasons. I get that there's a sincere policy intent here, but I also feel strongly that there could be some misuse with the way it's currently prescribed without limitations. So, if appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to table this bill.
You're making a motion to table?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to table House Bill 80. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And if we have it, please be brief. I see none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. No. Okay. That was pretty clear. The ayes have it. So perhaps Chairman Saines, you and Representative Westbrook can get together and clear up some of these concerns that you have over the next couple of days. So thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for hearing us out.
Thank you. Well, yeah. I know there was a couple of people signed up to speak on that, but when we have a motion to table, we'd have to take that motion up right then. So we're going to move on now to House Bill 472, Chairman Jaspers. And hopefully we can be... Well, I didn't say brief. I actually didn't finish that thought, to be honest with you, because I didn't know what to say because I didn't think it was going to matter. I just know we're going to lose people before long, so trying to get as much done as we can while we have the most amount of people here.
Yes, sir.
Right. The mic is on and the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. I'll let my cohort here introduce himself in a minute when I get through, but he is the CEO of the World Congress Center. So thanks for letting me present this bill to you. Yeah, and so, yes, I'm surprised that I'm doing this. I, like you, have fought very hard over the years for the expansion of Second Amendment rights and our ability to carry and as we choose and defend ourselves as we choose. And so this has been a little stressful for me. So how'd I get here with this bill? And I hope you'll take a little time to look at it. Line 13 through as we talk. It'll save us a lot of time. The World Congress Center is a jewel of downtown, and it's a state authority. We created it, we fund it, we put budget money every year annually into improving it, doing different things, all sorts of expansions. Their employees are state employees. And if you don't know it, we did create it. And it's, its roles for hospitality and bringing people to Georgia from all over the world. It's like the poultry show we had a few weeks ago, brought people from all over the world. To do that, the World Congress Center hosts all sorts of events that they schedule. They lease the facilities that we, the state, paid for. Some of the people who lease the outdoor areas would like to be able to control these areas and, yes, creating a gun-free zone. So for the last 2 or 3 years, there have been efforts that have been watered down, very loosely written pieces of legislation that have been attached late in the session to try to get this done. And I thought this language that was in there, when we found it, would give them an ability to broadly restrict our ability to carry and defend ourselves as we choose. You know, we caught it, we talked about it, we got those pieces aligned withdrawn. You know, the last time they did that, I said, hey, let's stop. Let's try to take some time, do the best we can to see if we can create an exception for these areas that the state owns that you'd use rarely in these outdoor spaces that people lease. And so that's what I worked on, and and it wasn't easy. It's hard to do something like this, but it was our choice here. We can stick our head in the sand, hope we catch somebody trying to stick a piece of line in a bill, or we can take a proactive measure. And if you know me, I'm pretty proactive. And I thought about it. I got some pros, I got some cons. I got some people that said I was an idiot. Some people threatened me. And but what I've done, I think they can use to create a prohibited space and still protect our Second Amendment rights. So that's the two. I know that's kind of an omni, whatever it's called, but I think we did that. If you look in the bill in Section 1, starting on line 13, it would describe the World Congress Center, and 10.9.14 is a description of what they do, or what they can do. And we talk about their property that is enclosed by an 8-foot tall fence, includes prominent posting and notice of restrictions at all access points when the leasee or licensee requires restriction in their lease with them on carrying a weapon or a long gun. And I'm reading this because people in the audience may not know the sub that we're looking at. It's a condition of holding the event. Provided, however, that such facility is not where vehicles are parked, no parking lots. It's an event in which such restrictions imposed, the leasee shall make available a local lockbox for the storage of weapons or long guns during the event. So what we've done, you take the Centennial Park would have an 8-foot fence around it. They would have to, the person, and I'll let him talk about the logistics of how they operate, but they provide the security. These people pay for this. The state's not paying for it. And everybody comes in, they've got a lockbox. If I walk up from MARTA, which I'm free to carry now to the legislation we passed years ago, I can go to that lockbox, put it in there, and go in if I choose to. If I choose to walk around the fence, well, I'm still can defend myself as I choose. And so with this, if you want to go into that restricted area, we're giving you a way for them to lease that property to the people who want to use it, but also finding a way to do that. I've listened to a lot of people, giving little ideas, and so worked pretty hard, and even till this morning, trying to make it written as tightly as I could to do just that, and no other, secondary things falling out that I can. There's questions on this, and I'll just bring it up. Is it a government building, a government entity? It is. It's very clear in the law in 127, and very clearly spelled out. I can show it to any of y'all that shows that. But I'll be glad to, if you would, Mr. Chairman, go ahead and let our CEO of the World Congress Center speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chairman Crow, thank you much, and committee members, thank you very much. And we're super appreciative on behalf of our customers that license our space and lease our space at the World Congress Center on a temporary basis. I'm wearing one of the buttons right now for our customer that's in town today, so 20,000 folks. But we're super appreciative of Chairman Jaspers introducing this legislation. It is a continued concern for our customers that they've asked us about. And really, at the end of the day, we want them to have the option to do the same thing they can do within the Congress Center. So right now within the Congress Center, they can lock down an area and prohibit weapons from entering into a certain area of the Congress Center on the interior. And now we just like to have that ability for our customer that licensed the space to do that on the exterior of the facilities. So one quick anecdotal, well, not an anecdotal, but we just hosted the CFP National Championship game, correct? We did, at their request, put a lockdown in place in Building A for their fanfare. They had about 50,000 folks come through, and we checked, and they were checking and screening for weapons. They paid for it all, and not one weapon was found, but we could not do the same thing for them in their outdoor space that they were using on our campus. And that's about it, unless I can help answer any questions.
Question: how many events do y'all hold at the World Congress Center?
I think annually we have about a little over 3 million people come through the facilities, about 160 events. And so I think it'd be a small percentage of events that would want to do this outside.
Well, how many of them, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can't remember too. So how many of these are they asked y'all to restrict the space?
Oh, it's very limited. I mean, in the last 90 days, we've had 3 or 4, but of the 160, I'd say it's less than 10%, and really probably even less than that for outside space. But, specifically some of the larger events that come through, men's Final Four, Super Bowls, FIFA, et cetera.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Representative McCullum.
So, just so I'm clear, so this would be Centennial Park, which is obviously now I can just walk through the middle of it right now, today. So you would actually put up a temporary fence around the whole thing and have metal detectors so when you go in. So have you had issues with people getting shot in Centennial Park during an event? And then the second thing is what's to stop somebody from shooting through the fence from the outside in with people standing in there? And then one other last question, I apologize. So that's state-owned property, correct? I mean, I know it's the...
Yes, sir.
So my last question, and I'll stop. So once we do this, I wonder if, will it continue to other outside areas, state, owned property as well, that would be limited access for Second Amendment? That's my fear.
Let me ask the last one, Representative first. No. If you look in 1611-127, it lists 7 areas. This adds an 8th area. Now, if you were to choose to bring a bill to add a 9th area, it would do that. But you'd have to, it would be you doing that, making that area just like I'm doing with the World Congress Center.
So let me go back and make sure I got your questions. Each event of and to themselves, when we host in Centennial Olympic Park, and we use that since that is our state-owned facility outside where we host most of our outdoor events, would prescriptively put up 8-foot fence around there, restrict access, have access points, and then obviously have emergency access, egress points, et cetera. And so that's how they would do it. Yes, they'd put up some sort of metal detection and screen for weapons on the logistics end. What would stop folks from shooting through a fence? I'm not sure. We have robust law enforcement plans when we put these on, and so we have law enforcement all over the streets, directing traffic, et cetera, but I'm not sure we could naturally stop someone from doing something like that. And then have we ever had anybody fire off a weapon, I think was that? During an event? Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions. First, the cost of the fence. What is the estimate that it would cost each, rentor or participant that's renting the venue? Is there a company that y'all prefer that is kind of a preferred vendor to do this, or they get to pick the person? How's that going to work? That's question one.
Okay. It would be up to the client themselves. We don't necessarily have any vendors that we work with to do this, but it's solely on their cost to put the fence up, put all the metal detection up, et cetera.
Do you have an estimated cost? Has this never been done?
Well, they put up fence before, and
an 8-foot fence,
and they have put up an 8-foot fence when we've done concerts before, because they want people to come in, pay to come in to see the event. And no, sir, I don't have the estimated cost. I can get back to you with an estimated cost on that.
My second question: by doing this and codifying this into legislation, do you ever see this giving the state or the World Congress Center an appetite to put up a permanent fence? If people continue to have to do this all the time, would you ever see the state doing that, which I think would take away from the look of Centennial Park?
Well, I think, as you know, we have a permanent decorative about 4-foot fence around the park right now with the gates. And to answer your question, no, I do not believe we'd put up a permanent 8-foot fence around the World Congress Center. It'd be a temporary, because we do think it is a fine jewel to the Olympic Games.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Neal.
Thank you to the chair. Just confirming, this is just for Centennial Olympic Park, right?
Well, it includes other areas, I mean, our outdoor areas on our campus. You know, our campus is 220 acres, of which Centennial Olympic Park is 22 acres. But most of that was addressed with parking lots, because a lot of that acreage is a parking lot.
Okay, Representative Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you said you did 160 events, or that's what you average per year. The people coming there obviously don't have a problem doing events there as is. So how many new events do you think this would bring into the city?
Well, we do 160 events on campus, and so not all of those are in the park. We do runs, et cetera, in the park, and occasional concerts. So would it drive new business? It'd be hard for me to sit here and say that would drive business. I think it's what we're trying to do is respond to business concerns that our current customers have, and primarily around our Atlanta bid events that come through.
So you're more concerned about businesses leaving and that number going down?
No one has indicated that they would leave, but yes, that is always a concern. We want to maintain our business and grow our business.
All right, I just don't see the point of the bill when you're not worried about anybody leaving, but you're not thinking it's going to bring anybody else either.
That's a fair point.
Okay, Representative Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. I think I have two questions. The first one is for a business entity that's renting the Congress Center, and they're going to use the park. It's up to them whether or not to choose this option.
Correct.
Okay, if they do not choose it, do you have them signing a waiver that if something does happen, they're responsible, and therefore the state would be protected from a lawsuit?
Good question. We have them sign a license agreement. Our chief legal officer is here and can opine on that if I need to bring him up and ask that. But I don't believe we have them sign a waiver. Or are you proposing that they need to sign a waiver if we don't?
Yes, I would, because that would protect the state from unnecessary possible third-party liability.
Certainly.
Okay.
And to answer the question before that, we have had, 420 Festival was in the park, and we were unable to preclude weapons, and that was part of the reason that they didn't want to do the festival in the park anymore.
Okay. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the author of the bill and to the gentleman with him. I'm going to have to resort back to my comments on the last bill. Okay. Second Amendment rights is a very precious thing. When we drafted and crafted legislation that Chairman Jaspers was a part of several years ago, it was a deliberative process that we had to deal with the judges, we had to deal with the courthouse personnel, we had to deal with, and of course common sense tells you don't want the average citizen carrying a weapon into a prison or a jail, and those exemptions and all. But one of the concerns that I have is that the Second Amendment is can be so misconstrued and can be changed at a whim. And a lot of times government officials tend to be the worst, depending on what their politics may be at any particular time. They can start interpreting new rules and regs. And at that time, if it's an infringement on a person's Second Amendment right, that person doesn't have the resources to hire a lawyer and to fight something. If they don't have the organization like GA2A or some of those or whatever the organization may be, they don't have the resources to hire that lawyer to fight for them. And it just goes by the wayside. And that right will eventually be lost. In this particular case, and what my concern is, while this would add the ninth option into that, where does it stop? What's the next and the next one? Once these things pass, it continues to erode away the liberties that people have. And that's my comments, and it pains me to take issue with my dear friend who we have rode together on Second Amendment rights for years. But that's my concerns with this.
I just, and I'll thank you, Chairman Powell, because you and I wrote 1611-127 with other people in this room, and I think did a good job. But as I said in my statement, I'm trying to, it would be up to us, Astrid, Representative McCollum's question, it's up to us if we would allow that erosion to continue. And this is one of those spots I'm trying to help them, but it's up to the will of the committee to do as they choose.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Powell. Floor Leader McDonald.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for another question, but looking at this whole scenario of the 8-foot fence, I'm not concerned about guns. I don't know how many people lived here in 1996 when the Olympics were here, and I was working at the Tabernacle right across the street, and you know what happened in Centennial Park. It wasn't a gun. So my concern is not about a Second Amendment right of somebody going to carry a gun in Centennial Park. It's what they carry beyond a gun, what they can hand over the fence that you said is there now, which with an 8-foot fence, I think somebody might see somebody throwing something over that might be used in a more, I guess, hostile way to take out more people, and that's more my concern than a gun. I mean, this is a world event. This is a world stage event, and we know what goes on throughout our world at world stage events. Things happen, and we don't want this happening on our turf like it happened in 1996 and what all went on with that. So that's how I look at this, as protection. Not about a gun. This is not about a gun to me. This is about making sure everybody that goes in, if it was that short fence, what somebody could put across, what they this may hinder them from putting across that 8-foot fence and protect the people of Georgia, my kids that may want to go watch soccer, and your kids that may want to go watch soccer, and the world that's coming to the United States to feel safe in Georgia. It's our job. It's our responsibility.
All right, thank you, Floor Leader McDonald. And just to echo that point, I was working for the Clayton County Sheriff's Office in 1996 and worked at Centennial Olympic Park. Fortunately, not during that when that happened, but yeah, that is a concern. Chairman Saines.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to recommend a amendment, and I'd like to ask the author. Truly, I don't think there's a better Second Amendment champion than the author of this bill. It is clear to me, just like the floor leader said, that this is about hardening targets that are susceptible to potential terroristic threats, and that we have a responsibility in this state to keep our citizens safe. With that thought, my fear is, are we creating a situation where the World Congress Center is the only venue that has that ability? Would there be an openness to the author to put a restriction in this use for some kind of, if this power or privilege is only accessible to any venue above a certain amount of attendees based on a permission from the Department of Public Safety, whoever, or GMUD, our Homeland Security Department, if they find that there's an event that meets the potential of being a susceptible location, so that we're not relying on a private vendor's decision.
I think you have two separate questions there. I think what Chairman Representative McCollum's good point is that if we do this, we need to be deliberative and be sitting here in front of you making a decision for a certain area. Would not be for creating some kind of blanket exception around. I mean, I think we'd be asking for trouble. I just wouldn't be for that. And I forget the last part. I'm just thinking too much. But
so in terms of restricting this privilege, I'm just going to go ahead and call it that, to certain events, I would say, let's say, and this is just a number I'm putting here, events above, projected to be above 500, and that our Homeland Security Department finds to be a meaningful enough need to create this added security measure. I would say that we should apply that privilege to all venues across this state. If we find that there is a venue in this state that meets a certain restriction for a terroristic threat, then we should they shouldn't be safer at the World Congress Center because it's a government complex more than any other private complex in this state. And I don't think that I don't want the good to be in the enemy of the bad, but it would accomplish two things: adding restrictions to where our state is leading on restricting what's coming in, not a private vendor, but also allowing it to be utilized by venues based on some kind of terroristic analysis versus private industry.
Representative, I'll just go ahead. I kind of was, it seemed like just there, this is hard to be able to do. And I guess I did because I think that during the appropriations process, which I'm a member of theirs, we can do stuff to them. I can, make them spend money, do things in certain ways, or with legislation. There's so many other entities that may be caught in what you're describing that you and I don't have control over. And that would be the difficult part. And, but I think if there is an event where Homeland Security says, hey, you got a problem, well, they should be able to say, that whoever is putting the event on should say, hey, you need to put this in place, or you can't do the event. Now, that's a whole different world of a bill that would do that. But I guess that's why here we have the hammer to be able to control that.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions I see from the committee. We have several people signed up to speak, and we want to hear from all of you. I would just ask that we be somewhat mindful on time, as we're going to run out of it eventually. We're going to run out of committee members at some point. So we have one last, Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know where this bill is going. I know the shortage of time we have. I do know for a fact that one of the issues that we've dealt with the World Congress Center is that they have tried to tag this onto other bills over the years. And as it's getting toward the end of the sessions, we've had to chase it down on different years. This is the first time I think this bill has been brought up on its own standing. So with that, I would make a motion for a do not pass recommendation. Let's get this thing out one way or another.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from anyone else? Nope. No. Representative Neal?
I just want to confirm the motion to the chair. You said you wanted it to pass?
Do not pass.
Mm-hmm.
Do not pass.
But I guess I'm confused because you started by saying you in reference to like getting it going, but you did a do not pass.
Yeah, I think what he, I'll let him speak for himself. I'm sorry, I didn't have your mic on. Say that one more time.
My motion is a do not pass, and that takes precedence.
Yeah, you bring it back in. You bring it back in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm clear on the motion, but I guess I misunderstood. I thought your comments were you wanted it to move it forward, and then when you offered do not pass, I thought so. I just wasn't clear about what you stated.
I want the procedures to move forward with a do not pass.
Okay.
So that puts us out of our misery and we can get on to other issues.
Gotcha.
Okay, he's being mindful of time. We have a motion and a second, and no further discussion. All in favor of Chairman Powell's motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
It was pretty close. All right. All in favor of Chairman Powell's motion, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay. And all those opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 6? Okay. So Chairman Powell's motion fails. Okay. Chairman Sains.
It is clear that there's genuine reason to hesitate on this bill, and I think we all have different reasons. I would like to, if the chairman's amenable to it, either attempt to make a motion to amend this bill or to table it so that that can come, that there can be time to look at perfecting some kind of more restricted scope to this measure. I'm going to ask, if it's okay to the chairman, the author of the bill, if he's open to one of those two.
At this moment, this thing has been very negotiated and with other entities and other organizations, and I'd rather, if you're going to do one of the two, to table the bill.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion to table and a second. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. All right, we're in the same situation we were in a minute ago. All in favor of the motion to table, raise your right hand.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And all those opposed, raise your right hand. Five. Okay. So did Mac, okay. So 7-5. All right. 7-5. Motion carries to table.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To all of those who had signed up to speak, I would love to hear from you. If you would like to talk about this offline, you can come see me. I'd love to hear what you had to say. All right, Chairman Lumsden. House Bill 238.
Hopefully, this will not be nearly as contentious.
Well, from your lips to the Lord's ears.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I bring to you House Bill 238. We're working from LC 560301S. This is a bill that authorizes the creation of a course of training at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center to help our first responders know how to deal with those folks that they encounter that have dementia or Alzheimer's related illness. This request comes from the Alzheimer's Association, as I understand it, and has the support of the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. The reason a bill is needed is because there is an appropriation component involved in this, and I understand from speaking to Chairman Hatchett that it's already been in place, so that's all the bill does. It authorizes the creation of a course for our public safety personnel concerning how they should interact with those folks that they encounter that have dementia or Alzheimer's related illnesses. That's what the bill does.
All right. Thank you, sir. Representative Neal?
I move at the appropriate time.
Okay. We have some people signed up to speak for this. Since we haven't heard from anybody today in the public, let's make the appropriate time in just a minute. I want to at least let somebody speak that came here to speak. So, Nancy, we'll just go with Nancy. I'll let you state your last name for me.
Thank you, Chairman. Afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Nancy Petra. I am the Director of Government Affairs for the Alzheimer's Association here in Georgia, and this is a legislative priority this year for our advocates here in Georgia. And I will start by thanking Chairman Lumsden for working with us on this legislation. I had the privilege and honor to work with the Georgia Public Safety Training Center over the summer and fall, as well as our Division of Aging Services Forensic Special Initiatives Unit on identifying areas and topics where we believe that some more training, advanced training for our law enforcement and first responders would be beneficial when they're out there and they encounter individuals with dementia or Alzheimer's. 6 out of 10 data shows will wander during the course of their disease. When they get, when they get disoriented, if they're still driving, they can be pulled over for unsafe driving. They are a lot of times victims of elder fraud, and the FBI actually showed us that in 2023 there were so many cases of financial fraud in Georgia for those over 60 that we ranked 10th in the country. So they got together, we worked with them to identify some topic areas. House Bill 238 is just identifying what those topic areas are for advanced training, and we look forward to your favorable support for this, and Georgia joining the other 17 states who have codified training around Alzheimer's and dementia. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Ashley Burton.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Crow and committee members for allowing me to speak. My name is Ashley Burton. I am the Deputy Director for Georgia Council on Aging. Director Stokes could not be here today, so I'm here to speak on our behalf. The Georgia Council on Aging strongly supports House Bill 238 as it aligns with our mission to protect and enhance the well-being of older Georgians. The key element of the bill of at-risk adult training for law enforcement officers is critical for ensuring safe, informed responses to individuals with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. As first responders, officers must be equipped to recognize cognitive impairments, de-escalate situations appropriately, and connect vulnerable seniors with the right support services. Proper training reduces risk for both seniors and law enforcement, preventing unnecessary trauma and improving public safety. With Georgia's aging population growing, this bill is a proactive step towards building safer, more dementia-friendly communities. Again, Georgia Council on Aging strongly supports House Bill 238 and urges the passage of this legislation to better protect our seniors. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's all the speakers we have signed up for this bill. Representative Neal, I believe you had a motion?
I do.
Okay. Well, she ain't made it yet. I appreciate your enthusiasm, though.
I move to pass.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. And lastly, Representative Holcomb, House Bill 518. And whichever version, wherever you feel most comfortable, to be quite honest with you, it's fine with me. We're going to have some handouts to go along with this. Yeah. You there?
Yeah. Sorry for being so casual.
No,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll present from here if that's okay.
That's fine. It's been that kind of day, so that's fine.
This legislation is born from, just for very quick context, over the last 10 years or so, the state has made a number of improvements to its response to sexual assault, from testing the backlog of evidence to setting up a tracking system to extending the time that we preserve the evidence. And throughout the year, I meet with the state expert committee, and we come up and we talk about different ideas for legislation to continue to improve the state's overall system. So with that as context, this bill does a few things, but all of them are important. In Section 2, what it does is it bans what are known commonly as do-it-yourself, early evidence, or over-the-counter sexual assault kits. Believe it or not, these are sold, and a few states, but we would be one of the vanguard, we would be one of the first to ban them, have banned them, and then a number of attorney generals in both what you might call blue and red states, pretty much universal opposition to these being out there. And the reason is, in Georgia, and I think this is true in most states, the sexual assault kit is paid for by the taxpayers. So if a victim goes and presents at an emergency room or a sexual assault crisis center, the state pays for that exam and for the evidence. And this would ban it. And what I'll tell you as a former prosecutor, where I'm coming from is the chain of custody. Because if an individual does this on her own and it's not secure in terms of the chain of custody, that's not going to get into evidence, and it's not going to help bring justice for the crime. And so what this would do would be to just say, other states may want to allow these, but we don't in Georgia. So that's Section 2. From that, let's see, the rest is already in code for the most part with respect to the tracking system, and I think there's an amendment in that regard that we'll have from Legislative Council just to kind of clear up the language. And then the other substantive part is, let's see, Section 3. So this is language directly from Senate Bill 304, which was the bill that we passed in 2016 to end the backlog. And this does two very minor things. You'll see that it inserts the word for testing on line 100. There was some ambiguity in terms of the way that it works is when local law enforcement forwards the kits to GBI. GBI is a matter of course, tests, but it's not in the code that they're required to. And this makes it clear that we want them to, in fact, be tested. And these are for the circumstances where the victim has reported the sexual assault. The law provides for a victim to either report immediately, meaning that it goes to law enforcement, or to have the evidence taken, but to preserve the right to move forward to law enforcement later. The reason for that is there could be compelling safety reasons why an individual might want to preserve the evidence but not immediately go to law enforcement. For example, if they're told, we will kill you if you do that. So we want to preserve the evidence but maintain flexibility for the victim. So that's also noted in lines 101 to 103, which comes from a real world example. An individual who had a victim who had the sexual assault kit taken, she did not have the knowledge at that time that she had the right not to immediately refer it to law enforcement. And when she coordinated with a victim advocate, she learned of that right and then wanted to halt the testing. So what this does is it says before it gets to GBI, and I coordinated with GBI, they said they don't have the capacity to handle any requests at their level, but it would go to the local law enforcement agency, which also makes sense because that's the investigating agency, and those persons will have a relationship with the victim. And then the last substantive thing that it does is it sets up, and this is in Section 4, a certificate and oversight program for our sexual assault nurse examiners. And you've probably heard the acronym SANE, which is for the sexual assault nurse examiners. The state has really worked hard to invest resources and build the capacity across the state, so wherever a victim may be, that the victim could have access. And what this would do would be to set standards of training and to provide a certificate, with the idea being that if somebody has this certificate, when they're testifying in a trial, that could just be used to provide the basis for their expertise. And so then they could get to testify on behalf of the victim. So that's the gist of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Representative McCullough.
At the proper time, I'd like to make a motion to pass the bill.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. All right, we got one. Floor Leader McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Holcomb, I was looking at as far as the who sells these over the counter. Well, I mean, where would you get those? Because you're saying over the counter or black market. I mean, I'm just saying there's two different places that things kind of come from. and whether it's pills or a sexual assault case. So where do these come that aren't coming from law enforcement or a hospital-sane nurse?
There's at least one company that I'm aware of. I prefer not to say the name.
I understand. I respect that.
But it's not on the black market. It's affirmatively out there, and what I have awareness of is that they market to sororities, and they have sororities buy them, and I think the sororities probably think that it's a good idea, but it's actually not, because it really, I think, limits their opportunities to move forward. So my sense is that if we pass this and become one of the very early states that ban this, the probability of these companies being successful will greatly diminish, and they'll probably go away. But they do exist now, and they are actively seeking customers.
One quick follow-up. So that leads me to the next question, line 88/92. So this, you say a company X markets to possibly sororities or other places. It's not a big box or small box pharmacy because I worried about that $1,000 that you got a new person that's working at one of our small boxes or big boxes, and they're sitting there scanning stuff, or something gets scanned in the self-checkout, that this $1,000 that would pop a new employee that really doesn't understand the law. So I just want to make sure these aren't in these places that we commonly walk in to get. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Chairman Jaspers.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to take a moment, more of a comment than a question, to thank you for your undeniably great stick-to-itness on this subject matter. For the last, 5 years, you have just been perfect and really protecting people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would echo those sentiments. You've been very passionate and done a lot of great work in this area. I did have a question just about the Section 4, the advisory committee, and I read here what it talks about the advisory committee doing, and it feels like, and I may be remembering incorrectly, but did we have a discussion about this last year maybe in judiciary non-civil? Is that or something to do with the with SANE? Was that in a bill you had in Judy non-civil?
I did file this before, but it never made it to the hearing stage. So you may have seen the bill, but it didn't get vetted. And in full disclosure, I'll put this out there. I don't know if anyone's going to speak. I did hear some concerns about this section. So this is what I would do, just to be very public and transparent. I'd like it to move and then have conversations, but certainly if it passes the House and goes to the Senate and individuals would like to either remove this or improve it, I certainly make a public affirmation that I'll do that.
Okay. I just remember we had the SANE coordinator and some of their folks, I believe, on maybe another bill you were doing or something else we were doing in Judy non-civil. So this seems to have turned into Judy non-civil light committee this year. So, but thank you again for your work on this. I don't see any other comments or questions. What is the will of the committee? I believe Representative McCullum, you had desire to make a motion.
Do pass. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. Stand by at that point. We're in discussion mode, and the attorney would like to say something. I was wondering, in the point, we have a motion and a second, and we are in discussion phase, which would be the proper time to offer an amendment if you would like to do that.
And legislative counsel will help me, but I think the amendment is largely one of just cleaning up, for lack of a better way to express it. Is the original draft of the bill had components that were already law, so in a revised draft is they fixed that. So nothing substantive that we didn't talk about, but just sort of clean up. But certainly we'll let legislative counsel confirm that.
Okay. And Ben, if you don't mind, if you could get in front of a microphone Just because it's being recorded and they can't hear you on the recording, so.
15.
All right, 15, okay.
All right, the amendment is to strike the "and" on line 21 and replace it with a do-it-yourself, comma, to strike "board" at the end of line 125. On line 152.
Okay, I'm sorry, so
Of
line,
course,
line,
sorry.
all right, so line,
Sorry, on line 125 at the end, strike "board."
so to read collecting, line,
Nurses who hold certification instead of board certification.
on line 25, I don't see.
Sorry, 125.
125.
Apologies.
There you go. That's why I didn't see it. 'Cause I was looking at the wrong line. 125, we're striking board. Okay.
On line 152. Give her 1 second. We're striking July and replacing it with October.
Okay.
On line 153 and 54, we're striking state sexual assault nurse examiner coordinator and replacing it with forensic medical examination advisory committee. And we're making the same replacement on line 157.
Okay. That,
And I believe
that person is same, that's also listed on line 160. Do
I
we
was
need to
just about to
replace
say
that?
exactly that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll make the exact same replacement on line 160.
Okay. All right, so that amendment would now read on line 21, it would read, is marketed or presented as a do-it-yourself, comma, over-the-counter, comma, at-home or self-collected early evidence kit.
That's correct.
Okay. On line 121,
125.
125, one of those, it would read, 4 shall be registered nurses who hold certification in forensic nursing.
That's correct.
And then on line 153 and 154, 157 and 160, state sexual assault nurse examiner coordinator will be struck or stricken, whatever the proper English of that is, and be replaced with forensic medical examination advisory committee.
One other, there was also on line 152, striking July and replacing it with October. There at the top of that subsection. That's right.
Thank you, I did miss that. October, line 152, we're striking July and replacing with October. And Representative Holcomb, that would be your...
That's the amendment.
Motion, or
Yeah.
your amendment. Okay. And just for clarity, he had the one we're looking at now done. It had Ben do another draft fixing that. Those two did not merge together, so that's why we're making this amendment here. We have an amendment. Is there a second to his amendment? All right, we have a motion and a second on the Holcomb amendment. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the amendment is added. And now any further discussion on the full bill as amended? Okay, we already had a motion to pass and a second. We were in discussion, so we'll now take the vote. All in favor of passing House Bill 518 with the Holcomb amendment, say aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries as amended. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your diligence and appreciate you staying around.